sage advice?
Play nice.
Always.
What are the challenge to be confronted to a James Bond franchise and as an art franchise director?
I mean, what an amazing opportunity. And you can imagine me, who has worked at IO for many years. I've been inspired by 007 in many respects, cinematic storytelling and images for a long time. And so it's an amazing opportunity to finally be here and help craft this wonderful experience for you.
How did you balance your experience since the Hitman franchise between infiltration and action, which is in a sense a little bit new for the studio?
The width of the experience is key for a Bond project. It wouldn't really be a Bond experience without relying on some of the skills that we have in the studio already. So that's really key. But I think it's more important to emphasize how much new there is. And like you're saying, so from refined hand-to-hand combat to refined shooting, all the way to the things that are quite new for us. For example, cinematics, facial capture, human drama, those types of things, on the sticks and in the game, all the way to vehicle action, cars, and all the way to, of course, our fully action set pieces. So a lot of stuff and a lot of growth have gone into the project from studio side. So hiring skilled people with the expertise to help us pull this off, for instance. And then, of course, yes, alongside that, leveraging all the things that we are capable of that, made the internet say, IO should do a Bond game. And we're like, yeah, we should do a Bond game. So all these things come together. But I mean, just because there are things to draw from doesn't mean it has been easy, and it doesn't mean that it's a no-brainer, of course, because, of course, we have a hero this time and not sort of a bad guy, right?
And how have you just to be chosen by Amazon, with just the owner of the franchise? Have you been approached first, or did you try to get in contact with them?
We approached them with this idea and with the idea of developing a young Bond for the gamers specifically. It has gone well, and we've been in discussions for since, announcement and a little bit before that, of course, about the idea of bringing a young Bond to life for the gamers. It's been exciting. And I mean, people ask about the pressure or this or that or opinions. And I mean, nobody puts more pressure on our shoulders than we do ourselves. But that's part of why we're here doing this. Although if it was easy, why it wouldn't be as exciting? And if it wouldn't be a challenge, then I think we wouldn't rise to the occasion, and then we wouldn't be so proud of where we are right now.
There is I think 13 years between the last James Bond game. For sure, the James Bond franchise is very famous and had a solid reputation since GoldenEye. Some of the licenses like Perfect Dark were cancelled. Many James Bond games were cancelled. What was the starting point to develop a game after some failures since a while?
But like we just talked about, the fact that we feel like IO had the pedigree and the skill set to dive into what we consider a full James Bond experience, namely a wide experience, because James Bond isn't just a shooter. That wouldn't be appropriate. And he wouldn't just walk around at cocktail parties and hang out either, right? We need the full spread from that all the way to the action, all the way to the spectacle set pieces. So I think, I'm sort of saying two things. On the one hand, it was natural that we were set up to do this, and we made this happen. And at the same time, understand the challenge that it is to deliver this guy. So,
I think there is no good James Bond without gadgets, guns, cars, charming parts, and infiltration, which was your specialty. Will we expect just to find all these key aspects in the game?
Yes. If I'm to expand on that, I completely agree on what I said just before in terms of the full width experience. I'm happy you mentioned gadgets. So, again, utilizing our expertise in the studio is really about embracing the calm moments of spy work, right? And the bread and butter of that. Like you arrive at a location, and now your task is to observe and figure out how do you approach the next step. First of all, what is the next step and how? And then, of course, in your arsenal, you have social manipulation. You can, eavesdrop. You can ask a few questions. You can nudge a little bit and be, excuse me, I'm just going through here and all that. All the way to gadgets where you can, affect the world around you in your immediate area through your Omega Seamaster, which is the heart of your gadget use, and through your Q lens you can sort of observe the world, and more gadgets than that as well. You are rewarded by Q as you progress through the story, and of course, as you mentioned, all the way to hand-to-hand combat with a refined set of mechanics there, all the way to we spend a lot of time with the gunplay as well, because of course, like you say exactly, having gunplay and action and being able to fight anybody in any method is key. So yeah, the width is insanely important for the experience, and it wouldn't be Bond without it.
The graphics are really amazing in the game. I was really surprised, like how deep it is, how far you can see. And there is also something which amazed me is the interaction. In your studio, at IO Interactive, interaction is important and part of the experience. For example, you can grab guns with your shoes, from the ground, or you can throw them to different enemies. What can we expect in that direction?
Yeah, wonderful observation. I'm happy that you like it. So in terms of interaction, it's important that because Bond is a young man of action, he affects the world around him. That means that the world shouldn't feel 100% static around him. So one thing is what you can manipulate, let's say, intellectually and smartly in the world. Another thing is what just happens when you're in combat. So you get fought, you fight with these guys and you get smacked around and you smack them around and into bookshelves and things fall apart and everything like that. So that dynamic interplay where the environment almost falls victim to your Bondy shenanigans is super important. And as we saw, of course, all the way to explosions and whatnot, right? It's important that the world feels like it reacts to the Bondy action, because again, without consequence, right? The action maybe feels a little bit less interesting. So a dynamic approach there and a dynamic experience is insanely important to us.
Interactive and also organic in a sense. I just noticed when you decided to enter and infiltrate this big house, the crowd is part of your experience from the Hitman franchise. And I also noticed you improve like many things, such as like PNG just watching you with eyes, when you were just sneaking in. How deep have you tried to just improve what will make feel, the game organic in a sense?
Yeah, all these things exactly about the crowd reacting to you and how they react to you and how you react to them. Excuse me, apologies. Where Bond has a little, his British wit comes to play, and he's, you can feel him as he, cruises through a crowd like that. And yeah, that's the human aspect of the destruction we just talked about before. If that feels organic and dynamic in that sense, it's important that the world around Bond acknowledges his presence and that he acknowledges their presence as well. Because the cool thing about Bond over what we've done before is that Bond is a, real human with charm, which means he brings the charm to the universe. Hello there, good, all that. And you feel so elevated, I think, playing it, and you get to sort of venture into these universes with him. And yeah, so the social aspect, the human aspect, the acting aspect, the animation aspect, all these things is something we worked really hard to lift, to be able to give you guys this sense of being in a world among humans and the interplay of the humans against each other. Yeah.
As I mentioned it before, like the game is released, will be released maybe 13 or 14 years after the last game, and you also before the next James Bond movie. Are you also connected with the James Bond team, working on the project and Amazon, or are you completely free to operate?
From the start, we pitched this as a Bond for the gamers, and that's why we remain on that. We're focused on that. So our core focus and our only focus is to deliver First Light to you guys. A young Bond, you get to step into his shoes and you get to earn the number with him in First Light, and that's really the boundary of my attention.
How have you worked to just create what's specific from the James Bond?
I mean, the director team and their respective teams have worked hard from the beginning to orchestrate something that feels very Bond-like, which means narrative director, art directors, audio directors have worked together to figure out what is this journey about. And all these very famous motifs from a musical point of view, how and when are we going to use them? Because of course that's key to the franchise. And so that's been a really interesting journey where we've, as lovers of the franchise in general, it's again, what a pleasure it is to play in that playground. And more than that, because we start with such a young Bond, we can get to explore how and why a lot of these things. So yeah, and we will have more things to say about music in the future as well. But yeah, it's been a really inspiring journey.
Orchestral music?
We'll have an orchestral score, yes.
And maybe just one last question about the story. Can we just have a few hints about what we could expect in the game?
Yeah, as I said, we have our young Bond who we would like to have the gamers identify with, which means you stepping in together into the foyer of Universal Exports, and you will together experience this world where the famed and beloved cast will be there, albeit in a slightly different version in our interpretation. So M and Moneypenny and of course Q, and you will have some new people to have relations with. So for instance, Greenway, who isn't nearly as excited about M's newly reopening of the 00 program, and he's of course tasked to make you all you can be. And so that's where it starts, and from there all the way through the enigmatic Miss Roth and lots of other characters, you will get to experience some of the questions you might have about Bond as you know him.
Can we just have different paths in the game, for the main story, or is it just a linear story with no consequences?
The story is linear because it's important that we deliver a singular thematic tale to you, and to do that properly we can't expand too much because it's not 5 stories, we're telling one story. However, in the game, obviously, I'm going to show the camera, we have different variations of scale and width. It's important for us though that you always have a choice to make, because Bond thinks on his feet, and to make the player think on their feet, it's important that there's always something to consider. As you see in the car chase, for instance, right, left, right, where do you want to go, what's up, make the choice now. You got to think on your feet, all the way to the more slower parts where you are investigating and opening up, and all the way to some action parts where it's everything from stealthy, sneaky human manipulation, gadget use over here, all the way to hand-to-hand combat, all the way to rifles and whatnot over here. So lots of different variations of exact width, but width certainly. And even though at its most narrow, choices to be made still.